We're like the Three Stooges. We make such a great team.
You're the one stooge. There's just one.
I'm the incompetent one. The other guys they just throw me into traffic, when they watch. Okay. Hello out there in Packer Nation, and welcome to another edition of the Absolute Packer Podcast. This is episode 45. We are thick in the midst of the off season between 2018 going into 2019. And it's been a few weeks since we've had a podcast. We've been extremely busy with just a bunch of other stuff going on. But the league and the Packers never sleep. There's a ton of stuff to talk about. But before we get into all that, I'd like to say hello to my two cohorts. We have Elliot Christensen. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. very, very sultry. And then Jeremy Haudala. Hello.
Hey. How's it going?
Doing well. So for the listeners out there, just a quick recap. Elliot's kind of the IT guy. Hopefully that explains.
You got to stop.
Not the IT guy. Okay, scratch that. He's the he's the.
I'm just the third out of three. I'm our third stringer in terms of Packers knowledge.
Oh my god.
Okay? I'm way happier to hear that. Okay, I'm way more good with that.
But you help get all this stuff together.
Nobody wants to be called the IT guy. Nobody wants to be called the IT guy.
Okay, we'll just call you the Joe Callahan. Okay.
Well, it's good job security, isn't it? It's like being a nurse.
What? No, we outsource IT guys to whatever, Pakistan or something.
Okay, I need to write this down. Elliot is not the IT guy.
Oh my god.
He is the.
I thought you got your memory back.
Bits and pieces. Oh, actually, this is really okay. I know it's kind of going off the rails already, but I have to tell you this. Speaking of memory loss, when I was sick, everybody, I got some crazy memory loss. I got a memory back the other day out of nowhere. You remember Rhonda Sitnikow?
Yes.
Yeah.
She cuts my hair now. Shout out to Rhonda. She's a great stylist. But apparently in the past couple of years, I had gone to her house and hung out, and I had no memory of it. And then the other day, I was just sitting around, and I was like, wait a minute. And a memory popped into my head of like hanging out on her porch. So I remembered her house, and I remembered where her house is, which I won't say obviously, but it was so strange.
Yeah, this is becoming kind of weird right now.
Very random.
I know, but it never happens. This is like one of maybe two memories I've gotten back. So for whatever reason, I was like, oh, okay, that popped in. So
true. I thought you were going to talk. I thought he was going to mention the other thing, Jeremy.
The other thing, Lordy. You're an IT guy, right? Oh God, I better keep going. Okay, Elliot's not the IT guy. He's the third piece. He's we'll call you the third piece. How about that?
Got 5 minutes of material. I'll tell you that.
Material, good, bad, indifferent, horrible. Who knows? It's just material. Jeremy, you're the all 22 guy. Can I call you that?
Oh,
but that's a good thing, isn't it?
That's lofty expectations right there, dude. Lofty.
Well, you did get the whole package, though, didn't you, for Christmas? Like the NFL, the film package?
Yeah, no doubt. But wow. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll go with it.
Okay. And then there's me. I don't know what the hell I am. I'm a stooge.
We're trying to trade you to the Rams.
With poor memory. I haven't gotten a whole lot of contract offers. I wonder why. Yeah. Anyway, podcast veering out of control. Going to bring it back. So
no, we can't because Jeremy wrote up 21 bullet points. I just don't even know how we're going to get through all this.
Oh, it's easy.
Okay. I mean, it's okay.
Let her write.
Bear with us. So, all right. So let's go over what's happened in the past few weeks. You had NFL free agency. You had the schedule got released, and let's see, the draft is coming up here, and then everything else that's in between. The big things are obviously NFL free agency for free agents that we signed, as well as free agents from our own team that we lost. And then just today being, what is it? It's the 25th. It's Monday. They just announced, I'm getting a little off track, but since it actually just happened probably a couple hours ago, they announced that the Packers are going to kick off the 2019 NFL season, the 100th season against the Chicago Bears Soldier Field on September 5th, I believe it was. You know what's interesting? the NFL, I mean, it's the 100th season, so I guess it's the two oldest franchises. But the NFL still loves the Packers, even when they are coming off of horseshit years in terms of just quality of football. But they love putting the Packers out there and Aaron Rodgers. So were you guys surprised they announced that as the opening game?
No, it corresponds with Chicago's 100th anniversary.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so it goes against the traditional, Super Bowl winner hosts Thursday Night Football, the first game of the year. It goes against.
You can only put the Patriots out there so many times. It's every
the Patriots and whoever else. But this year they're going to change it up and do the Packers and the Bears in Chicago, and then the Patriots are going to do Sunday Night Football. So we take center stage to start the year off, which is going against like I said, the normal trend, but it's a cool trend. Great way to start the year off. New coach going on to Chicago. I mean, Chicago Twitter is just blowing up right now. They're very happy to have the Packers coming in, and they're very stoked with it. So they want to go out there and prove to everybody that last year was not just an NFC North championship, that this year is going to be Super Bowl bound. So what better way to start it off and put them on the 0-1 train, and I feel pretty good about it. So,
well, Chicago's got delusions of grandeur. That's just silly. So we can move on from that. Super Bowl, okay. They just signed. They signed HaHa Clinton Dix. We basically traded safeties, and they're over there gushing over how HaHa Clinton Dix was such a good signing. We have lots of intel on the guy, and I beg to differ. Anyway, that's just a little side on that. But I think
we got lots of times to make predictions on that game.
Yeah,
yes, we do.
No doubt. So why don't we hop into NFL free agency? And I will say that this ain't your Ted Thompson Packers anymore. That goes without saying, because Brian Gutekunst opened up the wallet and signed 4 free agents, which was on day. Was it day 1 or was it day? It was day 1. Correct.
It was the legal tampering period is when they first started on March 11th.
Okay, so for whatever, we'll call it day 1.
Technically March 12th. Let me take that back. It was the second day that they. That's when we all woke up that Tuesday morning, and then all of a sudden off the Twitter wire, it was just coming bam, bam. Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Adrian Amos, and Billy Turner. It was like whoa, we haven't even got past the first one yet, and they're just continuing to announce these signings. So
yeah, the 2 linebackers. The 2 Smith linebackers, Smith squared. It's a good little nickname for them. Pat myself on the back. Oh man, I'm on fire today. Not really. But 2 outside linebackers, safety from Chicago, Adrian Amos, and then Billy Turner, offensive lineman. I can't remember, what team did he play for?
The Denver Broncos.
Okay, and is he slated to be a starter or to be depth or?
To be perfectly honest, for how much money they gave him, I mean, he has to start. Okay. They're gonna give him right. And
he's a guard. We should say he's a guard.
Well, he played tackle and guard for the Broncos last year. He started 11 games, and he kind of split them half and half, tackle and right guard and right tackle. So they gave him a 4-year, $28 million contract, signing bonus of $9 million. They're paying him to start this year. My guess is probably right tackle, or excuse me, right guard, because they have an obvious hole there, and I think they're really just holding out hope that they can get one more year out of Bulaga.
Exactly, I completely agree.
I think that leaves the future open for Turner, whether he has a good year at right guard. Could he transition over to right tackle when Bulaga leaves next year? He's very versatile in that respect. And the Packers, I don't know if the new regime likes this, but the old regime always loved linemen that could play all 3 positions, and this guy could definitely do that. So that's a big bonus. But they definitely signed him to start, and my guess is probably he's going to start out at right guard, and it's his to lose.
Yeah, that makes sense. Then let's see. I'm kind of working my way back, but Adrian Amos, safety from Chicago. Don't know a whole lot about him, but he seems to be an upgrade from one HaHa Clinton Dix. He may not be the greatest athlete, but he's more, from what I understand, he's more assignment sure. And maybe I'm wrong, but Clinton Dix was such an enigma. It's right. I don't really know what to say about that, but their safety position over the past, I would say, 2 to 3 years has just been a wasteland. Even with Dix in it, it's gotten even worse. So, so the 4 free agent, and then the other 2 guys, Za'Darius Smith, outside linebacker, he was with the Ravens. Ravens were loaded. So he was, a pretty good player among a lot of really good players too, and they paid him big time money. He's obviously going to be a starter. They're not bringing him in to be depth or anything.
Nope.
That's one of those free agents. Him and Preston Smith, who was Washington, right? Outside linebacker from Washington. Yep. I think both of those are going to be. We're so not used to having high-priced free agents on this team over the past 10 years, if not longer. Well, shit, Ted's been here since 2005, so almost 15 years. There's upside, but there's risk, no doubt, because it wasn't like they weren't huge names. They're younger and up and coming, which I definitely liked. They didn't go out there and sign an outside linebacker who's 30 years old. These guys are in their mid-20s and they are ascending. But you got to pay, especially on those first early days. So I wasn't terribly surprised by the numbers. And you just got to get kind of used to that if you start to play into the early parts of free agency, which Gutekunst definitely is. And like I said, this is not Ted's team anymore. I mean, there's not many. Who's left from the Ted regime? There's some players, but there's a lot of guys that have been jettisoned too. So what do you think about the outside linebackers?
Young. They're all under 26 years old, all in their second contract. So they've got 4 years in the league right now. And Preston Smith has been starting all 4 years pretty much. He's played all 64 games. Za'Darius Smith has been kind of a plug and play kind of a guy. He had about 690 snaps last year, 8.5 sacks, like 33 quarterback hits. I mean, the guy, when he's been in there, has been very productive, very disruptive. And talking about watching, NFL play or whatever it's that I have. I was watching a bunch of games of Za'Darius in Baltimore last year, and I mean, the guy is disruptive as heck. He is quick. He is powerful. He plays the game with passion that Clay Matthews played in earlier his career.
Kind of like hair on fire, huh?
Hair on fire, and just he plays with such passion. And I think the one thing that fans are going to like about this guy, he is so down to earth and so personable. When he came to Green Bay his first day, after he signed a contract, he came to Green Bay, flew into the Appleton airport, and the airport, or I should say the pilot, welcomed him to Northeast Wisconsin, Green Bay Packers, and all that kind of stuff. And he actually, if you go on his Twitter page, he actually took a picture with his family near a Packer shop in the Appleton airport. So
now you realize they couldn't. Sorry, I cut you off, but they couldn't bring him into Green Bay Airport because it would have been like the Beatles coming on over from Liverpool. Right? They had to fly him into the bustling, the huge LaGuardia-like Appleton Airport.
Right.
in the cover of night, so he's not.
No, I think this guy.
Wisconsin type thing.
Right. That's so Wisconsin. Yeah, no doubt. But I think people are going to really love this guy. Preston Smith, I think I voiced my concerns with him, via chat and in other places. But he's not really productive. He hasn't had a lot of stats. He hasn't had a lot of splash plays. But the one thing that he does bring is tremendous physicality. I mean, he's a big guy. He's like 6'5", 250, 6'6", 250, whatever he is. Just a towering guy. And he can get to the quarterback. I did watch him last year when we played Washington in week 3, and David Bakhtiari, our left tackle, pretty much shut him out. He had no, in that game, he had no counter moves. David Bakhtiari just stymied him the whole game.
And David Bakhtiari, for those who don't know, is basically the best pass blocking left tackle in the league.
Right.
So that's, to be expected in some respect.
And right. You're totally right. And I think the two Smith signings were very. There's a lot of money. Think about this: the Packers, in their 4 players that they signed, of the 5th player, including Mercedes Lewis, who was a free agent, they spent $184 million on these 5 players. That's the second most of any team in the NFL this year. So they went out.
Who is it? Was it Washington?
The Jets are number 1 at $209 million.
200, goddamn.
Yeah. So I mean, they have they've put their chips into the middle, and they went all in this year. With their free agent signings, but getting back to Preston Smith, I mean, I hope that we get the production out of him. I hope that Petting can kind of turn him loose and get him in productive ways to get him, into more sacks and stuff like that. He's never had more than I think it's 8 sacks in any year. Zadarius Smith had the most sacks last year with 8.5 in his career. But Zadarius Smith is very, he can be moved from the outside edge. He can be moved inside. So he's very versatile on where he can rush from. Where Preston Smith is pretty much from the edge, and that's it. So they're going to get their money's worth out of Zadarius Smith. Getting back to Adrian Amos. I mean, there's a lot of talk between Packer fans, Bear fans that everybody got the better end of the deal. Here's how it plays out. Clinton Dix gives you more splash plays. He is more dynamic in that respect that he can get more interceptions, more forced fumbles, more fumble recoveries in that respect. Where he definitely fell off the train in the past 2 years is his dependability in the back end. His tackling went to shit. His reliability and being able to cover when they play 2 deep zones, he would just mysteriously go off and wander off and then leave his zone wide open. There's a play in Detroit before halftime last year.
He looked like he didn't want to tackle the last
right.
It was embarrassing on a few plays where he would run alongside guys without trying to tackle them. I mean, I don't even know what else to say.
And, there's people that say that we just didn't have a pass rush to give him much. I don't know. We'll see when he's playing in Chicago. To me, I think we got the better end of the deal because we got a guy that, he hasn't been really productive. He hasn't made a lot of splash plays, but he is solid. He's a veteran. He covers a lot of ground. He can cover tight ends. He just doesn't make any mistakes. And I think right now we need more assignment sure guys than we do guys that are taking chances every play.
Gutekunst, when you think about it, he did really well getting a 4th round pick for Clinton Dix because Clinton Dix goes to Washington and they didn't even think to re-sign him. Right. And in fact, he got benched. So it was like, ooh, that was another, shrewd move when you think about it.
Right. So those 4 guys there, Billy Turner, Adrian Amos, Preston Smith, and Zadarius Smith, huge signings for the Packers. A lot of money, but they're very much a short-term contract. So the Packers, if they don't get production out of these guys, they can, realistically get out within 2 years, maybe 3 years with Zadarius, just because of how large of a signing bonus he got. But, these are very short-term contracts. Likely, unless these guys really excel, are they going to see all 4 years? But it's a very low risk, high reward proposition for the Packers because they get young guys that hopefully can keep on ascending. And if they don't, they can get out of the contracts relatively cheaply after 2-3 years. So
agreed.
Sounds like exactly like what we wanted, really.
Yeah.
What's interesting, they got 2 outside linebackers. I mean, so Matthews is gone. I mean, we'll get to that in a second here, but I think even though, I mean, you'd have to say they probably overpaid, but again, that's what happens in free agency. I like the fact that we can sit here and the board going to the draft, you can kind of let it come to you. You don't have to necessarily reach for shit, Right. It's even though that 2 of these outside linebackers are probably going to start, you still kind of where I'm going with this is, at number 12, if there's a stud outside linebacker staring in the face, you take him. Even if you sign those 2 guys, you take that guy. Yep. If there's a great value outside linebacker at 30, and say you don't get one at 12, but there's a great one at 30, you take him. Right. And just keep going.
Yeah, they aren't so stuck to take an edge rusher at 12 right now with the 2 signings. But like you said, if somebody like a Brian Burns or a Rashawn Gary slips down to 12, do the Packers take them? I mean, my guess is you have to, because you need as many pass rushers as you can possibly get.
That's it too, exactly. You can never have enough pass rushers.
No.
So if you have one staring you in the face, that's of great value, and you got to pick them, you pick them.
Exactly. Here's the other underestimated part of this team that I think people are forgetting about here because it's kind of overlooked. But the defensive line. I'm gonna point this out. 2019, we have 3 players that are going to be after the season, after 2019, that are going to be free agents. Actually, Kenny Clark has got the 5th-year option, but if let's say, for example, they franchise Kenny Clark, that's going to be over $15 million right there.
Okay.
you talk about Blake Martinez. He's in a contract year.
Well, he's a linebacker, though. He's not a defensive lineman, is he?
No, you're right. But I'm just talking about money-wise. They're going to have to spend big money on those two guys if they want to keep them. But getting back to the defensive line, I thank you for bringing me back on tangent.
No problem, sir. I'm just kidding.
No, Daniels is going to be a free agent. Dean Lowry is going to be a free agent. And then Kenny Clark could he has a 5th-year option. So they have some guys that are going to be possibly on the brink of leaving here. So they have to replenish the depth there because beyond them, I mean, Muhammad Wilkerson is not guaranteed to come back. Montravius Adams has been a Montravius, he hasn't done anything.
Was he drafted? What year was he drafted, Montravius?
16.
16. Okay, it wasn't even 17. Okay, so he was drafted by Ted.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember him.
Oh wait, I'm sorry, 2017.
Okay, but that was Ted's last draft, right?
Ted's last draft, 3rd round.
Okay. Yeah.
So they had high expectations for him.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you have Tyler
Lancaster.
Hasn't done much. Tyler Lancaster.
He's a try-hard guy, basically, right?
Yes, they have a lot of try-hard guys. They need difference makers across the board.
Yeah, They those guys. I mean, Montravius should be depth. Well, I mean, he shouldn't be. He should be starting because he's a 3rd-round pick. But if he's not going to be what he is, he needs to be depth, and they need to get better. Lancaster should be depth. That's one thing I've harped over and over during the latter half of Ted's basically his tenure was the amount of guys they had in starting roles on the team that should have been backups or just depth was stunning. They had so many guys that were maybe they weren't being paid to be superstars, but they were depth at best. That was way too frequent. So
on the defensive line, I think that holds true because besides Kenny Clark and Mike Daniels, who else out there is truly that bona fide starter that can really raise hell on the defensive line? There's nobody. You have depth guys. You have Dean Lowry. He's a good depth filler. Montravius Adams hasn't shown much yet. Tyler Lancaster showed a lot in the second half of last year. He's going to be depended on to provide good depth this year. And then James Looney, who they drafted in the 7th round last year, hasn't shown a whole hell of a lot. But so I mean, they just don't have a lot there. And I think that's the most underrated part of this team is that they shored up the outside, the edge. Now they need to shore up the inside because they have to look into the future as well. If they were to lose Mike Daniels, who else do they have to fill in for him? And also, if they have to give Kenny Clark the huge contract, or if they let him go, just think about that. Then we lose him. So there's a lot of unknowns on the defensive line that I really think people are underestimating.
Do you think they'd let Kenny Clark go?
No. I don't care what it takes. You sign him. If it's going to be $15 million, you have to sign him. You cannot let him go. And here's the thing. I mean, if you're just trying to forecast the future, because they kind of went out and splashed in free agency this year, next year is not going to be like that. Right now, the cap is not very healthy. So they're not going to be able to go out and do this 2 years in a row. So they're going to have to draft really well. And they're going to have to depend on the free agents that they sign now to, at least meet or exceed expectations. Otherwise, we're going to be in a world of hurt here in the coming future.
Yeah, this is, man, when you think about it, this season is a huge season just for everything. This is the tipping point for, I was talking to my dad the other day and we were talking about Aaron Rodgers, and it's like, I think he's going to come out with his hair on fire and he's going to be out to, wreck the league personally, because he's just, if anybody can play with a chip on their shoulders, Aaron Rodgers. I've never seen a guy, get so fired up with said chip on his shoulder since like Michael Jordan. He just every little slight. So I'm counting on him, and I really do think he's going to come out and just absolutely, in a new offense too. I think it's going to be great. But the big but is, and he wants to prove, the league and everybody else wrong that McCarthy didn't make him. I mean, if he comes out and he plays okay or anything like last year, Packers are in deep shit because they have got an albatross of a contract around them, and McCarthy, I think it will be somewhat revealed that maybe McCarthy did make him, so even the narrative around Rodgers and McCarthy is going to kind of carry over into this season. But so it is just, there's so much that has to happen if it goes a certain way. Yeah, very interesting. This is the biggest offseason since 2005?
Oh, I would agree. I would agree.
15
and,
years.
Yeah, and that's when the prior regime started. That's when Ted Thompson and
they went
8-8.
So they started off kind of poorly, and they had Favre, who needed to be kind of it's a lot of parallels.
Right.
So we shall see.
Yep.
Yeah, real quick. Mercedes Lewis and Geronimo Allison. I mean, Mercedes Lewis, I'm a little surprised they re-signed him. Just for blocking? I mean, what are they gonna do with him?
Well, LaFleur likes tight ends. He likes tight ends that can block as well as receive. The one thing that we didn't see from Mercedes Lewis last year was receive, and
but he's slow as shit.
I would disagree. I don't think that
really?
he's not a barn burner, but he's also not a Richard Rodgers.
Oh God,
he's not that bad. He can be used in very deceptive ways. Play action near the goal line, like I was talking about in previous episodes. First and goal and play action, then hit him right over the middle.
That's what Jimmy Graham was supposed to be, but
right. So I think he's undervalued just because he didn't do anything last year, and McCarthy just did not. For whatever reason, did not want to utilize him. So we just got to give him a chance.
Utilize tight ends, period, in the past 3 or 4 years. He didn't.
Yeah, ever since he got rid of or Finley retired, he just did not have the guy that he wanted. So
stupid. And Geronimo Allison, I mean, he's a guy. He's depth. He should be probably your number 5 wide receiver, right? Should be. Hurt, he's undrafted, but he's big, and Rodgers. I mean, I guess. We shall see with him. Big thing with him, I got to think it's just going to be health.
The big thing with him is health. Before he got hurt last year, he was on pace to get 1,000 yards. So,
are you kidding me? Was he really?
Yep.
Wow.
75 catches and 1,000 yards. He's a decent player. I mean, he's not your number 1, but he's a good complimentary 2, 3. Maybe on some teams a 4.
You think he could be a 2?
Depends on how this goes. The draft, free agency.
No, I'm sorry. I should clarify that. Should he be a 2?
No, he should be a 3 in my eyes. But
I think he'd be a 3. I think he'd be a 4 or 5.
Yeah. Well, I mean, go back and think about. I posted on our APP Facebook page the article from ESPN when we won the Super Bowl, and we came out and. They showed a picture of Aaron Rodgers on the cover of the magazine with Greg.
I remember that.
Donald Driver.
Yeah, they were
Jordy
loaded.
Nelson, James Jones.
Loaded.
And I mean, we were spoiled
Donald Driver
at that time.
Was their 5. I mean, well, they had Finley, he was tight end on that cover too, but because that was 2011, that was actually the year they went 15-1. But I know what you're talking about. But yeah, Donald Driver was he was still pretty damn good, and he was like your 4th or 5th. They were
we were spoiled with weapons back in the day. We don't have that luggage right now. They don't have that heavyweight receiver right now besides Devontae Adams. So we're going to have to rely on a lot of guys to, be schemed into being productive at this point in time, so that's what we're relying upon. But I mean, Geronimo Allison can be very productive. I think he can be, I think being 1,000 yards is really asking a lot from him, but he can do it,
Sorry, my cat just ran across the room and he was just, he looked like, I don't know, crazy cat.
Well, it's funny. I got a cat rubbed up against me now that wants to get out of the room. So
this cat, his tail poofed out like a raccoon for no reason. There's nothing else in here, and he's just running around like a lunatic, making weird
Cats
noises.
Are funny.
I know, it's hilarious. He's doing it again. Oh Lord, sorry. Okay, so more free agents. These are the ones that were on our team and they lost. Clay Matthews, Randall Cobb, Rashad Breeland, Kentrell Bryce, Jake Ryan, Nick Perry cut. Quite a list. I will say every single one of them needed to go. Clay, Randall, Nick Perry are the 3 that I'll say were the toughest, if you will. They were the toughest decisions to make, but they had to be made. So kudos to Gutekunst for doing it. Rashad Breeland, I didn't think we'd lose him, but I don't think he was as good as people say. So I'm kind of indifferent on him. Kentrell Bryce, junk.
Why do you say they were tough?
Well, actually, I'll say this: maybe they weren't tough, but they were decisions Ted wouldn't have made.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good point. So
yeah,
Ted
I
wouldn't
totally
have made those decisions. He would have brought those guys back on lower dollar amount deals, but they shouldn't have even been brought back. You need to get better and younger. Period. End of story.
Right.
Yep.
So
argument.
So what do you think, Jeremy, of those players?
No, I agree with you 100%. I think Matthews, he was towards the end. Randall Cobb just didn't have that explosive speed anymore.
He's
that
29, but he's an old 29 because
he's an old 29.
He came in the league when he was 20.
Right.
He's only 29. I didn't know that.
Yeah. 9 years. He came in when he was 20. But he got the hell beat out of him, and he had a short window too. You know, it's like he had a 3 or 4 year window. He was pretty damn good, but he's really beaten up, and he's been hurt so much the last few years, and couldn't separate from really anybody. And in this scheme wasn't helping. So
yeah,
Bashaud Breeland, I don't know enough about him. I mean,
I think that one is going to be a loss that'll sting depending on how we fill it in there. He filled in last year. He came in off the street, middle of the season, and he did perform pretty admirably. Had 2 interceptions, I think 1 for a touchdown returned. He did really, really well. He got along with the guys, and he was a good locker room presence. Those are the things that it's very tough to replace guys that are good locker room people and can get young guys to kind of lead them by example type of a thing. And I think he did that, but it didn't sound like we were willing to spend very much money on him. He went to Kansas City for a very low risk 1-year contract, prove it contract, I guess you could call it. And it just didn't sound like we wanted to be in that realm. So we let him go. But Kentrell Brice had to go.
Kentrell Brice, was he a starter, named a starter at training camp? Oh,
yes.
God. See, that's one of those players where he had no business. Look, I don't want to knock. It sounds terrible to say, but it's not terribly fair. But he's not a starter. He's not an NFL starter, and I just don't understand why he would be named. I'm close to that, and I feel bad saying that, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't want to completely bash the guy, but he's not a starting NFL player.
No, I'll give you a note, though. I mean, he started over Josh Jones, who we spent a 2017 draft pick, a second-round draft pick on him. Yeah. When you lose out to an undrafted free agent, that's not looking really good on that guy. So, this year...
Riddle me this on... What did Josh Jones play in college? What position?
He played free safety, and then he also played in the box as well.
So they drafted him to be safety or to be a linebacker?
I think they drafted him more to be that hybrid linebacker, that Mark Barron type guy, because that's what Capers loved. That's what Capers loved. But,
you know what ticks me off, and the Packers were kings at doing this, drafting guys and then changing positions, or drafting guys that were in between positions. Yes. A guy like Josh Jones, he didn't have a position, and if you don't have a position in the NFL, you're as good as, you know what I mean? That's the worst thing you can be in the NFL, is to not have a position.
Yeah.
And I was going over some of the, just going off on the Ted rant again, and even it was almost 100% on defense, not offense. But look at how many players they changed positions after they drafted him. Nick Perry's, even Casey Hayward was an outside corner. In college they turned him into a slot corner. Micah Hyde, and all these guys leave, and Casey Hayward was a freaking Pro Bowler. Nick Perry was a 4-3 end. He was not a 3-4 linebacker. It's just Ty Montgomery, it changed him to a running back. Now they say they had to do that because of injuries. Bullshit. You go find a running back and you sign him off the street. You don't change. That was so prevalent for so long, and I'm not a fan of that at all. I had to let that be known. I think that really hurt the team, especially on defense a lot, when they were just shoving square pegs in round holes all the time.
And I think we're going to see that here for at least the short term, just because of how many holes we have on this roster. But I think you hit the nail on the head in the earlier part of this episode, is we went out and we signed playmakers. We went out and signed players. So we're banking on a lot of these guys to do a lot of big things. And, we were finally doing that. This is the first time since, 2009 when we brought in, or a little bit before that, Charles Woodson and Ryan Pickett, those veterans that kind of led the Super Bowl victory. That was the first time they went out and we actually got a real aggressive in free agency. So, I think that the tide is turning for the good here, but just don't be get mad because we're filling holes and we're plugging holes with studs right now because we have way too many holes, and we're going to have to plug a few of them with a few studs here and there.
They got to have a kick-ass draft. This needs to be like the Saints a couple years ago when they got Kamara. They got 4 starters out of 1 draft. You know.
Yeah,
they're going to have a kick-ass draft to be a contender this year.
They have 4 picks in the first 75. They have to hit home runs on pretty much 3 out of those 4, I would say. I mean, 4 out of 4 would be ideal, but number 12, number 30, and 44, they got to hit home runs on those guys. We cannot have Josh Jones. We cannot have another Ty Montgomery in the 3rd round. We have to be able to get guys in here that are going to be head and heels above average. Where
was Josh Jones? I don't know anything. I know nothing about him. Where was he projected to go?
Projected, I think he was like between 3rd and 5th round.
And they took him in the 2nd round?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Sorry. That's just. Ugh. I don't know.
Well, let's hope this year they can transform him. They're going to need to.
I mean, it is an all new regime. The only guy that's left coaching wise is Pettine, and I think he's the right guy to keep.
Yes. And the thing about Pettine, think about this. Last year, we had over 40 sacks with our defense last year.
Yeah, crazy.
All pretty much created by Pettine's creativity and his ability to.
Because I was going to say the outside linebackers didn't have a lot of sacks. Clay didn't have any.
No, Clay had 3.5. Perry had 1.5. Kyler Fackrell was the only guy that had any.
Right.
10.5.
Fackrell had is he still on the team? Was he contract year?
He's end of 2019 is his that's his end of his 4 years.
Do you remember he had that one game? Was it against Seattle where he had 5 sacks or something? 4. I think he had 4 sacks in Seattle this year, and they said here's his coming out party, and then he disappeared, completely disappeared for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Well, there are the one position that I will say takes a lot longer to develop, and that's outside linebacker. So I'm hoping this year, being his 4th year now, that we get more consistency from him, because last year we saw glitz, we saw glamour, but we also saw corn stalks in the wind. We had
children of the corn.
Children of the corn.
Remember they called him sack roll and all this crap.
Oh yeah.
I mean, obviously I want the guy to do well, but man, that we'll see.
Yeah, let's see what he can do.
Okay, let's see. Jake Ryan, linebacker, inside linebacker is. I mean, look, they got to do better. They got to draft faster. Whatever. Let me talk about Blake Martinez for a little bit. I think he's a good player. I think he's borderline starter. You'd almost like him to be more depth, but he's a little bit better than that. He's really a tweener in terms of talent. But he's almost like the wrong guy in the wrong time period of the NFL, because he's still kind of that stop the run, a little bit slower guy, the older old school kind of inside linebacker, because that guy can't cover a tight end. You got to be able to cover a tight end in this day and age. He can't cover a tight end. And what I'm kind of getting at there is there's these positions where they got an inside linebacker has been for a long time. They haven't had a difference maker there, and they've been going after kind of try hard guys, and they've been slow to adapt to league changes. Who was their last really good inside linebacker?
Nick Barnett.
You know who I would say it was, to be honest with you?
AJ Hawk.
No, Desmond Bishop.
Oh, yeah.
And he was a 7th round pick.
But he was only 2 years, though. He didn't have a lot of sustenance here.
No, but he was a big part Super Bowl year.
Oh, agreed. I think that in the Super Bowl year, he had a phenomenal year. He came in and he wasn't the starter when the season began. He came in, filled in, and he had a phenomenal second half of the year. So
yeah, I think he was. I mean, and what I'm kind of saying is, if he's your bet, I mean, AJ Hawk. Oh God, I don't know what was he, 6th overall, 5th overall?
5th overall.
Man, he was the last of the old school linebacker. You know what I mean? And the league changed during his tenure, basically, is what it was.
Yeah.
He was solid. Whoa.
Sorry, cat.
Getting mad and throwing things. He was solid, but never. Man, he remember he had like no turnover plays, and rarely. I mean, he was just. But for a 5th-round pick, ooh. So yeah, I personally think the last good inside linebacker, or could be Clay Matthews when they switched him there in 2014.
Yeah, you could say that.
Where they switched the position because they were so desperate. One of those things again.
I'll say this. In a 3-4 scheme, your defensive line typically is they take on all the blockers so that your linebackers can make plays. We haven't had a defensive line. We started off last year with a pretty solid defensive line. Then everybody got hurt, and then Martinez was kind of left out there taking on blocks and stuff like that. He needs to be a linebacker that can roam free and not be run over and succumb by big linemen coming at him on a consistent basis. That's just not.
You got to be able to cover tight end though too.
Yeah, and he's just never going to do that.
That's a problem.
Ideally, he's your number 2 inside linebacker, and you take him out on obvious passing downs, and you bring in your Devin White or your Devin Bush, something like that. He would be an ideal fit on earlier downs.
Sure.
On a 3rd down, you're right. He's a liability in coverage. But I think people need to realize that he isn't that bad.
No, he's not. He's not. Like I said, he's a tweener.
He's slow. No doubt.
He's a tweener between starter and depth. In my opinion.
2 years of 140 some tackles. I mean,
but he's not bad. He's not bad. No, he's not bad. But I guess I subscribe to the thought process of if you can get better, get better.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Don't settle. Is kind of my thing, and I don't know, but that's easy to do. I mean, you're not gonna have all pros at every position. So,
nope.
Yeah. Who is what kind of defense does the Seattle Seahawks play? 3-4, 4-3, or do they
4-3?
4-3. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say because they had kick-ass linebackers, but they have 4-3, where it's obviously it's more important to have those linebackers.
Well, plus they got really good linebackers too.
Oh yeah, Bobby Wagner,
KJ Wright. And, those guys are star Pro Bowl linebackers. So big difference between those two guys and Blake Martinez and Jake Ryan.
Where were they drafted? That's kind of where I'm going. Where did they find?
They were higher up. Like 3rd, 4th round, 5th round, I think.
Okay, just curious. Okay, let's see. That started with Jake Ryan. Cut Nick Perry. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say about that. It's not Nick Perry's fault that he was even on this team.
Mm-hmm.
He's a defensive end. He was hurt all the time. Had to go.
Yep.
About all I can say.
Yep. And they're taking on the cap hit this year instead of next year. So
which is what you do. I mean, it sucks, but hey, it's what you gotta do. And I hope he goes somewhere with a 4-3 and flourishes,
Yeah.
But
$11 million in dead money this year he is giving us.
And that was one of the worst contracts Ted gave out. Maybe the worst. Okay, so currently estimated at $14 million in cap space. That's after all these signings?
Yep. That's not including Geronimo Allison's signing because they tendered him. It was pretty much a right to first refusal. So they gave him a $2 million contract, and then they had the ability to match. He had the ability to go out and sign with teams, and they had the ability to match it or decline it and not receive any compensation for it. They kind of upped the ante and now gave him pretty much a guaranteed contract that will keep him here. Now teams can't bid for him. So now he's going to be a Packer, and the only way they wouldn't be is if they would cut him. So.
Okay. Gotcha. Clinton Dix signs for Chicago. We actually talked about that a little bit earlier. We probably don't need to talk a whole lot more about him.
Nope, we're done.
And we did talk about 2019 Opens in Chicago on 9-5's 100th season. So apologize we got a little bit out of order on that one. So now we're hopping into upcoming draft. We have 10 picks. All I really know, to be perfectly honest, at this very moment is we have 2 in the first round. We got number 12, we got 30, and then whatever's left after that. So my personal opinion, they got to take somebody at 12. If they trade out of that, I'm going to be mad. Somebody's going to be there at 12, a difference maker.
Yes.
I don't want to see them trade out. I want them to take somebody. I don't want them to reach, but I want them to take somebody, and somebody will be there.
Yes, and what we have to hope for is that more quarterbacks fall into the top 10, like the Kyler Murrays, those types of guys. We need probably a good 3 quarterbacks to get drafted in the top 10 for a lot of these, difference makers that we need to fall to us. So we got to hope that.
Here's the $1 million question. If Hockenson or Fant is there, do they draft him?
At 12? No.
You don't think?
No.
If we record another episode this month, then we could talk about that before the draft.
Ooh.
Microphone drop.
Elliot sneaks in.
Silent but deadly.
Oh.
Yeah, I'd rather be the IT guy.
You don't want to be compared to farts, all right?
Probably not.
No, I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot actually, because
but farts.
That, but also tight ends. I guess they go hand in hand. Tight end, fart. They're kind of like they're like hind end, or I don't know with this. I don't know where I don't know where I'm going with this.
Off the rails.
It's past my bedtime.
It is, yeah.
But I've seen some people say that Hockenson, they're going, oh, he's a generational talent. Don't buy it. He looks pretty good.
No.
Not that good. Fant looks like he's a more athletic Hockenson, but not as good as a blocker and all that. So it's like, I don't think they're worth number 12. If they're there at 30, yeah, grab one of them.
Yep.
Yes. But I don't want to say I'd be crestfallen if they took him at 12, but I'd be pretty damn surprised, unless they really want him. LaFleur really wants one of them. Who knows,
Yeah.
So I'm kind of preparing myself to not be absolutely, flabbergasted if they do. But I think they got to find a difference maker on defense.
Yep.
At 12, if I was gonna kind of pick something. I mean, the only other thing I could possibly think would be a wide receiver.
Offensive line as well.
That's the other thing I was thinking. Yeah, tackle. I mean, I don't know.
They still need linemen. I don't care if it's a guard, if it's tackle. They need linemen.
You're right.
And there's a funny thing that Pro Football Focus. I don't know if you heard about this, but they gave the Packers top 5 pass blocking line in the league last year. And
they weren't top 5; they were number 1.
Oh my gosh! You know what? And people, I guess, will have disagreements.
About that Ben Fennell article. I think I sent it from Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great article. It's
awesome. When I was reading that thread, for those who didn't know, Ben Fennell's a guy on Twitter, and he breaks down. I don't know exactly what capacity, like which outlet he works for, but he breaks down a lot of film, and he's familiar with a lot of Packers stuff. And he basically tweeted out that Pro Football Focus had the Packers offensive line collectively as the number 1 pass grading offensive line in the league, and we're sitting there as Packer fans going, "How's that possible?" Because the offense looked like shit most of the year, and when you look deeper into it, it just basically says they were pass blocking very well. But they led the league in sacks allowed on third down. And there was one other stat that was just absolutely crazy.
45 out of the 53 total sacks that they gave up were after 2.5 seconds.
That's it. That is absolutely insane. And basically what Ben Fennell said, kind of paraphrasing, was that points to terrible quarterbacking and an absolutely horrific offensive scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Ding, 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 ding.
Mm-hmm.
It's so that's where stats can absolutely, I don't want to say they lie, because they did have a pretty good offensive line, but also I think anybody with 2 eyes who followed the Packers a lot knew that the right side of their line was trash. Bulaga was hurt. And when he's hurt, he doesn't play very well. Some guys can still play well hurt. He doesn't play very well when he's hurt. He's got a lot of mileage. And right guard was a wasteland. So when they would give up pressure it would be from the right side, and it would be some guys were damn near taking the snap from the center. These pass rushers, I mean, it was pressure so quick. But yeah, those still, it's you got an all-pro left tackle. Left guard's pretty good, and their center is damn near an all-pro. So the left side line is pretty good, but how many times on third down are you going? Were they giving up a sack? You're going, you have got to be kidding me! And it would be Rodgers dancing around, like you said, longer than 2.5 seconds. They were holding up their end of the bargain, and then you go, Well, are guys getting open, or is Rodgers looking for the deep ball, or chicken or the egg, or what the hell's going on?
Well, the one thing I saw in the second half of the year is, to me, I saw a lot of dump offs that could have checkdowns that could have happened on 3rd and 5 and so on and so forth, and he didn't take them. Seattle was the most blatant example of that. Where he would just not take the check down. He wanted to go downfield. So is that on Rodgers when he gets sacked in those scenarios? You damn right it is. Is it scheme? Yeah, you're damn right it is.
Yeah.
Because your offensive play caller should be saying, you know what, you've got guys open underneath. Throw the freaking ball to them. And I don't know if that was happening or not, but it didn't seem like it, because there were a handful of times in that game where he just refused to throw the check down to Aaron Jones. So
how in God's name, and for Rodgers, who's such a cerebral player, how in God's name would he take a sack over that?
I have no clue.
Because I know he doesn't want to turn the ball over, but you're looking at these checkdowns, you're going, there's no one within 5 yards. I don't think you're going to turn it over. You're not throwing it into a tight window, buddy. Weird. It's just a very strange.
That is the enigma that we will never,
and also, when he's
know.
Taking sacks, he's getting hit, so he's putting mileage on his body. He's getting injured. Rodgers, somebody had a really interesting comparison. They didn't have stats, but if you look at Tom Brady's career, I bet you Rodgers has been hit how many more times, sacked or hit, how many more times than Brady?
Yeah.
It's just because Brady gets that ball out quick and does a checkout and all that kind of stuff. Rodgers has just he's taken way too many hits because he either doesn't want to turn the ball over or he wants to throw it deep, or so he'll take the sack, right? Mm-hmm. But, then you have the collarbone injuries and the things like that where it's just, I don't know. He's got to live to fight another day.
I didn't see on this bulleted list all the negative points that are listed here. Where's Andy's rant on this list?
I don't know. We should talk to the IT guy. You walked right into it.
All these things. Well, not all of them. Number 19.
I'm ranting.
Number 19 doesn't sound particularly positive, but like most of them sound like pretty positive changes. So like I want to be upbeat. I thought we could have an uncharacteristically upbeat.
So we are funneling into number 20, the negative Andy tone. Go ahead, Andy.
Potential rule change.
No.
Oh, no. 19? 19?
20.
What?
Am I looking at the wrong notes?
I might be looking at the one I have as potential rule change for number 20.
Okay, you don't have 20 McCarthy incident at basketball.
Well, you uploaded 2.
Oh,
yes.
I'm looking at
the second one. Sorry.
Okay, whoops. Go ahead. So, McCarthy incident at a b-ball game. Yeah, we might as well just touch on that. That was silly.
Take it, Andy. Take it, Andy.
That was very silly. Well, number one, I didn't realize McCarthy was still in town, but I guess he's still living in Green Bay, I think. Obviously, he hasn't got another job or an interview. That is one thing that's very telling, is that people were convinced he was going to be high in the, he would automatically get a job, kind of a thing. And then it's been crickets, and they could say, well, he wants to take a year off and all this kind of nonsense. That's a bunch of BS. I think a lot of people look at what's going on with Rodgers in Green Bay and all that, and how his offense is simple, and they know the league has kind of passed him by, to be perfectly honest. That's my take. But
and to his credit, though, he did interview with the New York Jets.
I guess, to his credit.
if you want to call that one, I don't know.
I don't really.
Wow.
He went in there and went, no, I'm kidding.
But I legit.
Could be. But I guess what I'm more talking about is, even while he was coaching the team, and they're going, well, if he does leave or this, that, or the other, he'll get scooped up in, 10 seconds. That obviously did not happen. Mm-hmm. If you're, so I think there's a lot of stuff going on there where he's not going to have a lot of interest. He may not be back, or he may be, some kind of consultant role or whatever.
I think we were all kind of on the fence. I don't think we all thought that he was going to be, a shoe-in But I mean, it wouldn't. Would it really have surprised you if he went to the Jets though? Like that?
No, because the Jets suck, and that's what Jets do.
Right. So like, I don't know. I mean, he's not terrible. So I mean, like whatever. It's just like sometimes you just need a change. He was ready for a change. We were ready for a change. Maybe he needs other people, other better supporting cast, whatever.
Well, what I'm getting at, kind of, I hear what you're saying. There is something to change of scenery, but his offense, the league collectively, I mean, they know his offense is. It's like writing with crayons while these other, you know what I mean? I mean, it's
and maybe maybe he shouldn't be running the offense. So maybe depending on the team.
But that's all he does, Elliot.
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's like if that's all you do and that's all your career is built around, and you've been kind of exposed as a, at one point it was good, but he didn't. What I'm getting at is he didn't change with the times, and he's not going to go in somewhere and install some brand new high-powered offense. I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
So I think the league passed him by pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's kind of towards the end. But anyway, this basketball game incident. So I woke up one morning and I see McCarthy, like written up like he was in high school or something. He was at his stepson's, I think basketball game, and he was berating refs and like trying to follow him back in the locker room. And there was like some kind of incident. I'll just leave it at this. It's not a good look. He's always been somewhat viewed as a hothead, I think. And anyway, you see him on the sideline and he gets pretty damn worked up. And for a guy who's trying to get another job, not a good look, Right. So it's about, like I said, it was just kind of silly. And then the national media got a hold of it. So you get to see, Notre Dame basketball, high school basketball in the news or whatever it was.
But let's think about this. If that was you, and, me, or Elliot doing the same thing, would that have made any major news outlet?
I mean, if it was me, yeah.
Well, of course. Elliot.
Of course, yeah.
He's big time.
Yeah, of course, he is big time.
We call him California for a reason,
Oh, jeez.
I call my tea.
No, and that, no. Oh, geez.
I'm sorry, I can't help it.
You got to work on your material. I think that should not be in your 5 minutes. So
scratch that.
But you're totally right. Cut the guy some slack. Let's say things are as dire for him as we're painting it. Right, he loses his job, and then he's at his stepson's. His stepson's game, and he like this is all he's got right now.
I get that, but also I'll say this. It's pretty obtuse. You got to have some self-awareness.
Well, on the other hand, don't you think like, oh, finally I'm out of the public eye? Like,
then like I said, he's obtuse. In this day and age, if you fart, they smell it in social media.
Well, maybe.
I mean, really, So that's kind of what I'm at. I think you just. But is it a big deal? No, it's not.
No, it totally isn't. And I kind of feel like it's not fair to him, not fair to.
No. There's an element of that in me that I feel.
It's not. I don't think it's fair to anybody involved in that. Like, really, this had to be like brought to the attention of anybody. Like this, if like you said, if it was any of us, anybody else, any of the other parents, would have just been like, whatever, right? Would have been forgotten by the next day.
Sure. So yeah, I agree. But I do wonder, after this going into 2020, if he doesn't have a job by then, I think he's going to be out of the league, or he'll be coordinator, or he's not going to be a head coach. So I guess we shall see.
He'll be back.
You think he'll be back as a head coach?
Either offensive coordinator or head coach.
Interesting.
I know you won't like that, but
I shouldn't say I won't like that, but I'd be surprised, I guess, is maybe what I'm saying.
It is amazing what success will do to you. I mean, if you think about it, he is probably one of our more successful coaches in Packer history. And you might attribute it to, Ted Thompson in his earlier stages of his GM career, helping him with, loaded rosters, or just, whatever. I don't know. But he had a very successful career here. 13 years of 10 years of playoff success. He was in the playoffs.
He was.
and like how like he couldn't have been completely inept, right?
No, he wasn't. I think, but I look at, like, I guess maybe McCarthy and two things. Ted Thompson. There's like tale of two Teds, right? His first half of his career, pretty damn good. Second half, I mean, it really faded away. He faded off consistently. Each year it got kind of successively worse. It wasn't little blips. It just got to the point where it's like, and it was just really bad. McCarthy, a similar way. I mean, I will say till I die that the beginning of the end of the whole damn regime was the loss of the NFC Championship game to Seattle, that meltdown in the last 2 minutes. That was the beginning of the end of the team, the regime, the whole damn thing. I think McCarthy lost the team and a lot of the veterans after that loss. And basically after that, getting to within a whisker of the Super Bowl, Ted didn't do anything to really improve the team. It was just more status quo,
Yeah. But it does. I think I agree with Jeremy on that, though. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, other teams are like, you know what? Like, it's like that old saying, like, you never got fired for buying IBM, or you never got fired for buying Microsoft, right? Like, you don't you get yourself a couple years if you're the management for hiring a winning head coach. So like,
yeah. Well, it is a little different because it's the NFL. It's not. Just any kind of business. Plus, it's a very cutthroat league. When you look at Ted was there, 15 years?
Yeah.
It's fucking eternity in the NFL, right?
Sure.
McCarthy was there damn near the same time. He's only there 1 year less.
Yep. And I don't think he'll be given a long leash, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see him.
What I'm saying is like the beginning of the end being the NFC Championship game. That was 2014. Fast forward to, that was 5 years straight of steady decline.
Yeah.
When everybody and their mother knew it. And I just think it's very unfortunate that everybody knew it, but they didn't do anything different because it was just easy and cushy. That's why that's all I can think of.
Hey, I'm not hiring these guys from my team. I'm just saying there may be people who may.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's like
absolutely, yeah.
And that's very frustrating because anybody with two eyes could see it, and it was like a train wreck in slow motion. You knew it was happening, but it played out for a half a decade. The refusal to change and get with the times, the refusal to adapt. A lot of cronyism. It's not just the NFL. It's all over the place, and that's why you marvel at guys like the Patriots, the evil empire. They'll trade Hall of Fame players, before their contract's out. It's not like they won't re-sign said player. They'll trade the guy. They will make ruthless but correct decisions. Hard to do, but they'll do it. And I have to applaud them for that. I always say it's a copycat league, right? And I've always wondered, why don't more teams do what the Patriots do? Because they're the only team that really does what they do, that runs their ship that way.
I think it just shows how hard it actually is. Yeah,
it could be.
Right.
Could be, but then
it's easy.
Yeah. No, there's an element, and look, Belichick does have Brady. That's a luxury to have to be able to do this. I get that. But I'm trying to think of other teams that would trade away great players that are still, quote, in their prime. Belichick does it all the time.
He's playing chess,
Yeah.
3-dimensional chess. So, all right, onside kicks. What's up? That's
I don't know much about this, but yeah.
Okay, so the competition committee is made up of 8 members, and they're right now the owners' meetings are, I think it's in Arizona this week. They're discussing all kinds of topics, issues, whatever. The 2 biggest topics that are coming up rule-wise is the onside kick as well as the overtime rule. The onside kick, what they are proposing to do, and they have 7 out of the 8 committee members that supported this, is instead of the onside kick, you give the team 4th and 15 at their own 35 and make them convert. So eliminate the onside kick and just give the team 4th and 15 at their own 35. The other rule then pertaining to overtime, which right now, when like let's take the New England Kansas City AFC Championship game last year. So the Patriots came down before regulation, tied the game up. They go into overtime. They won the coin toss. They took the ball. They scored a touchdown to go on to the Super Bowl. What they want to do now is to give the Kansas City Chiefs a second opportunity to counter that touchdown. So, and guess which team proposed this rule? They wanted to amend Rule 16. The Kansas City Chiefs of all teams. They wanted to amend this rule to give in this game, for example, it would have given the Chiefs an opportunity to score a touchdown to tie the ball game back up again. I don't know how I feel about that, but those are the two rules right now that are the hot button topics amongst other rules that they're talking about that are being discussed. And right now, the onside kick, that one has a lot of steam, and there's a good potential that could actually fall through. And this year, we will never see onside kicks.
I'm good with that.
But is that a safety thing or what? Player safety thing?
Yeah, I mean, concussions decreased, what did they say? It's somewhere between 25 and 35% last year. All kind of that they tied it back to special teams and not having the kicking team get a 5-yard running start, so on. And the wedge blocks, not having these big offensive linemen,
every time I think of an onside kick, I think of Brandon Bostic. I'm fine with it. Let's get out of here.
It's good. Let's be done with that. Let's not talk about that, please.
God.
Please. Well, you know what? In the new rule, we wouldn't even have that happen. The Packers would have had the ball at the 35-yard line, 4th and 15, convert.
Yeah. Sounds fine.
I mean, honestly, if the league wants to go that route, that's putting the onus on the offense. And what have the Packer fans over the years wanted the Packers to do? They wanted their offense to be the last ones on the field, and they never were able to do that. Arizona. I mean, we throw the 2 Hail Marys before regulation. We go into overtime, and the offense never got the ball back, and we lose in overtime.
Isn't that crazy? They throw 2 Hail Marys. 2 Hail Marys. Wow.
Right. So the Packer fans of all fans should want this rule to give Aaron Rodgers the ball.
I think that one's fine. Yeah, the other one, I don't know. I got to think about that.
I mean, just think about this. Let's take the Patriot game last year. They converted on 3 3rd and 10s in overtime. You're going to give the Chiefs another opportunity to combat that? I mean, come on. They didn't stop the Patriots. Why should they get another chance?
Yeah, no,
you had your chance.
Yeah.
And they knew it was coming too, because they gave it to Edelman like every time.
Right.
That's what's
Gronkowski.
No, it's going to Edelman. Yeah, he retired. See that?
Yeah. So you don't think that's got much of a chance of passing?
I don't think so, but they're mulling over. I mean, I've got 3 pages of it here, and they're mulling over many options to the overtime rule. But I think the rule that could go into effect is taking away the onside kick. That has some steam.
They got to simplify the rules. I don't know.
I agree. I mean, they need to, and I mean, they keep chipping away at. I heard somebody say that they go, football is a beautiful game. The NFL is terrible. There's a lot of truth in that.
Well, try explaining this game to somebody from another country.
No kidding.
Right.
Yeah. And number one,
I barely explain it to myself.
Number one, you go, it's called football. Well, what do? Do you use your foot?
I know.
A little bit.
We're getting rid of the onside kick.
Normally we put it in our hands, but it's called football. Yeah, but we put it in our hands. So that's the very first thing you have to explain to people.
Yeah. The places
it's not called handball.
We're gonna get rid of
it's called football. Oh,
nice. So those are all our bullets, and we're way over time. So I think we call it quits.
All right.
I got a good name for this episode.
Yeah. What?
Off the rails.
You know what? If we haven't used that already, that sounds great.
No, Andy's off the rails. Yes, let's do that one.
Yeah,
Andy's off the rails.
He's not the only one. I was off the rails too. It's all good. Yeah.
Ruby on rails.
No, okay.
What?
It's not IT. Call that Ruby on rails. I don't know what.
Take your pills and
go to bed.
Go to bed.
I already took my pills.
That explains
Almost done with them.
Okay. Go back out.
podcast. Chair. I know, right?